everybody, and welcome to Flock Talk episode 15. Today we're talking about RPGs, both tabletop and video game. Should be a good time. So before we get into this episode, we've got a few announcements to make. On February 10th and 11th, Kevin, buried on Mars, one of the co-hosts of a Retro Fandango and a member of the Cartridge Club, is doing a charity stream in memory of his father who passed away in October. It is a Twitch stream of a bunch of different Cartridge Club members playing retro games, new games, all sorts of games. A lot of first-time streamers and a lot of really big personalities. You're going to want to check that out. Also, I was on the We Love Katamari podcast for Cartridge Club Prime, where we dissected We Love Katamari. And you know what? Spoiler alert, I kind of love Katamari. And finally, I'd like to congratulate STC Pod for winning Podcast of the Year at the CC Awards 2017.
That's right. Congratulations, SEC Pod. I hear it was a tight race.
Chris, did you vote for us?
We were robbed. I voted 28 times.
And they probably all canceled out. It was a spoiled ballot. You're only supposed to vote once.
We lost all 28 times.
I think there was a lot of support for all of the podcasts that were eligible. So it was nice to recognize SEC Pod. I think they're one of the unifying podcasts that sort of everyone in the club listens to.
And also, I was one of the co-hosts of STC Pod, so it was kind of like I won anyway.
You basically won the whole thing.
Yeah.
I basically did, yeah.
Yeah, your hand in that honey pot.
I also wanted to talk about the Cartridge Club forums, but we're going to get into that on the hot topic.
Hot topics.
Kathryn, there's a lot of really amazing things going on in the Cartridge Club forums right now. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So much going on, but one of the things that I look forward to, because we participated last year, is the Cartridge Club ABC, so Alphabet Backlog Challenge, which is where you play games off of your backlog, and the goal is to play a game that starts with every letter of the alphabet. I just squeaked in. It was kind of a dirty... it was a dirty X, because it was Guilty Gear
Oh,
XRD.
Dirty X.
Oh,
Triple X, baby.
finally.
It was Guilty Gear XRD, and I counted that as my X because it was New Year's Eve, and I needed to get one done.
Wait.
Yes?
Is there an X in Guilty Gear? The name of Guilty Gear?
It's called Guilty Gear. It's XRD. Like, I don't know what it even means, but the title is Guilty Gear XRD Revelator.
If we're just
like
making things up. I mean, you can
No.
pick any number.
There are
of
many
games.
Guilty Gears, so they go by their sub-name, and the sub-name for this one was
Oh.
XRD.
All
It would
right.
be like... It would be
No,
like
the
Street...
subname's really like Revelator or something.
It's called Xrd Revelator.
It has an X in the title, and that's actually now stipulated in the rules for 2018 because there are very few games that start with an X. Is it X or Q?
Both.
Oh, X and Q. You can play a game that has an X or a Q anywhere in the title. So I was playing by this year's rules last year, basically. So I've already started.
Fine, what was your Z?
Oh, Zookeeper. It was on the DS. It's a match 3 game, but it has credits, Chris. It has credits if you play the adventure mode.
Oh,
And that's
yeah?
one of the things, too. You just need to get a credit screen or, the end or whatever. So I've already started. I played a bunch right at the beginning of the year, and then I haven't played any since. But I played a hidden object game called Amulet of Dreams, and it's still like 6 or 7 hours to play through one of them. It was a pretty good one, actually. It was actually kind of lengthy, and you had to like go through these portals and find hidden objects, and then also do like the regular puzzle solving stuff. Then I played Botanicula, which is by the people who made Samarost and Machinarium. How do you say
Yeah, I
it?
think it's something like that.
Which is just a point and click.
It's
adventure,
either
but it
of
has-
those two things.
It's any of
Machinarium?
those. Maybe an amalgamation of both.
Because I feel like it's machine or, Machinarium. I don't know. It's by a Czech company.
But this game was so good that it was a real checkmate.
You should maybe check on the name of the company.
Oh, boy. Okay, so I actually did look it up, and it's called Amanita Design. They make very good games. They're just point-and-click adventures, like puzzle solving or whatever. Botanicula is adorable. You're I
Plants?
don't know, you're like little Yeah,
Plant
you're
people?
in a
Pod
tree
people?
and
Are
you're
you
meeting
pod
you
people?
meet all these like different bugs and things like that, and you have to get items and help them out. And the tree is dying because these big scary spider monsters are kind of sucking the life force out of this tree, and so you're trying to like figure out how to save the tree and kill all these spiders.
You know, that kind of reminds me. Have you ever seen those pictures of during the hurricane when all the spiders took over the trees and they just looked like giant, like balls of white puffy cotton, just because
Oh,
they were so covered in spider webs? You
uh,
ever see that, Chris?
No.
Look it up, baby.
I don't think I've seen it. It sounds kind of disturbing.
Oh, it's horrible.
So that was I played an
It's
A
nightmare
game, a B
inducing.
game, and then I toyed with the idea of playing my games in alphabetical order, but then that's just ridiculous. So you and I played Day of the Tentacle together on the PS4, the remaster, and I've never played it before. You've talked about it, Chris, a lot, saying you guys have to play, and we loved it. It was so much fun. It was actually a really fun game to play co-op as well, like not as a co-op game, but just the two of us trying to figure stuff out together. It got a little frustrating at times, so we did look up a few things, like maybe
Like two
two
things.
things, just where we were like,
What did you guys get stuck on? Spoilers for anyone who hasn't played a 30-year-old game.
that gum, like right at the very beginning, yeah, there's a coin stuck in a piece of gum.
Oh, you gotta take it
And
out with the crowbar, right?
hey, yeah, but we just like it was just one of those things where we're like, you don't get the crowbar till for a really long
Well, the
time.
thing is, you have to take the keys out of a door that's open, so you have to close the door and then see that there's keys
Right.
inside it.
Yeah.
And that was where we were stuck. We
Yeah.
did not know that we had to close that door.
But what was really frustrating about that was that we tried everything we got, we would try on the gum because we're like, we know we have to get the gum. So it just like wastes a lot of your time. Like we picked up 5 different items. Let's try it out on the gum.
I feel like Bernard didn't try hard enough. I think he could have got the gum off with the scalpel. Honestly, I think you could have done it. It makes more sense to me than the crowbar, but
But it works in the way that it works. Like, you know, it's designed to be solved in a very particular way. The other thing that we didn't know, more spoilers for the game, was pushing the lady that was on her chair.
Oh, for the
Pushing
camera.
her out of the way. Yeah, we didn't know how to get rid of her. Pushing and pulling, you never think to use it on anything besides like doors and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So it just was a little bit out of the box, and we weren't thinking that way. That's all I've played. So I've finished 3 games so far for my CCABC. I started playing a game that started with C because then I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have ABCD done. And it was a game called Contrast, but it kept crashing my computer for some reason.
I thought you were gonna say Contra, and then you said contrast.
No, I can't play Contra.
contrast.
I could play Contra with the Konami code. We did that last year. That was actually our C last year. But this year, Contrast, it's set in maybe like the 50s or earlier than that, maybe like the 20s. It's like got a beautiful jazz soundtrack, and the mechanic is really cool because you're like a little girl, and well, you're actually a woman. I think that this girl can see. It's almost like you're an imaginary friend to this little girl. It's a puzzle platformer. Your character can move into the shadows. So if you get stuck, there might be like a light shining on a wall, casting a shadow, and then you can put yourself into the shadow on the wall and start platforming in the shadows just to get to a new area. And then you can take yourself out of the shadows, and then it becomes like a 3D adventure puzzle thing. It's by the same company who made We Happy Few,
Oh,
which
that's
is
coming out.
yeah, I think it's out now. It's the VR game with the happy pill where everyone's on like drugs.
It was originally supposed to actually be an Xbox exclusive,
Oh, okay.
and then they lost it. So it's available for everything now, including VR, I guess.
The computer kept crashing, so I stopped playing. I'm updating drivers to see if that helps because I really do want to finish the game. It was really, really fun to play, and the world kind of gets you exploring areas probably before you should be. But so I was getting a little sidetracked just trying to find because it has a very jazzy theme, and if you explore the world a little bit, you'll find like I found like a gramophone, and I found a microphone like on a stand for a singer, but if you activate them for a short period of time, it will cast a shadow on the wall, and then it becomes a little platformer to find like bonus things in like it's like I don't think you have to do them. It's just to find collectibles and stuff like that. But it was kind of fun to just, instead of advancing the story, just wandering around the world and finding these little things. That's like a little mini game where you have to figure out how to play in the shadows.
For E, are you gonna find an illegal, like, EverQuest server and just grind through EverQuest for the rest of the year?
Last year they let us use games that you spend 20 hours or more. So we had Overwatch for our O because we played 1,000,000 hours of that. But I don't know if that's still in the...
It wasn't in the rules this
It
time.
wasn't in the rules this year. I was trying to get them to say that Dragon Age Inquisition could be I, but the Donovan Viper who started this, he kind of set out rules for 2018, and it kind of sounds like it has to be a title that the game is often referred to as, and I don't think Dragon Age is ever referred to just as Inquisition.
It doesn't matter because it qualifies for Q. So you just use it as your Q.
Oh, that's true.
You've got it even better.
Inquisition, yeah.
Yeah, all right, there we go. Thanks, Chris. You saved me.
Done.
Chris, you've been you don't do the alphabet backlog challenge, but instead you do
No.
something else. What's your hot topic?
I play good games throughout the year.
Hey.
And the game I'm playing I finished, is Super Mario Odyssey, which,
Congratulations.
yeah, that wasn't hard to finish a really good game.
Do you feel like every time you play Mario that you're in fact Luigi? Because your middle name is Luigi, right?
Yeah, so I finished the game and then I could finally buy the Luigi costume. And so now he just wears a Luigi costume.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fun.
nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And are you going to go back at all, or you finished the story and now you're done?
Sure, so I went back a bit to do all the easy moons in every location. And now I'm running up against the harder challenges, and now I don't know if I want to grind the harder aspects of the game.
There's just so many moons.
How many moons do you have?
I don't have a lot of moons. I don't have a ton of moons. I did all the easy moons.
You need to get like a whole buttload of moons to get the good ending, I think.
How many do you need to just beat the game?
Like 150 or so.
So you have at least 150, right?
Yeah, I've got about 200-ish.
Okay.
I think you need like 400 or something to get
800.
the good...
800
no,
moons.
No!
It's
800
crazy.
moons?
There's 999 moons in the game,
That's
right?
too many moons.
It's some insane amount of moons. It is so good. The game is so good. It's bonkers how good that game is.
Did you play the entire game handheld?
Yes.
Right, like I had a hard time with the controls handheld, so I'm kind of curious to see what it's like projected on the TV, and if that makes some of the controls easier. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
sure.
think it does. There's a waggle that you can do that spins the hat all around you that I think makes things significantly easier.
You can kind of do it in handheld, but you really have to shake it.
Nah, you really got to
right?
shake it. And I'm playing it
And
on the
you're
subway.
playing on the subway.
So I don't want to be shaking things all around. It was bad enough during Breath of the Wild. You have to do some, like, you know, the old game Labyrinth, where you
Okay.
move the tabletop.
Oh,
There were
yeah.
a few puzzles in Breath of the Wild where you have to,
Oh.
like, solve it.
Like move the marble through the maze.
Yeah, so you have to solve it like that, but with the Switch.
Yeah.
And I was on the subway like, please nobody think I'm a crazy person.
It's not as bad as like having to blow into the DS. Like when you're playing a game and it's like blow into the mic and you're on the subway, like, and you look really stupid. Just
Or the screen is like, just give me a kiss. The screen is, just give you a little kiss.
Anyway, Mario Odyssey is really good.
what was your favorite world?
My favorite world was New Donk City. The ending of New Donk City is so good.
Everybody loves New Donk City, and I never got to it. I don't have the attention span. Like I should play it, but I moved
You're
on.
too busy playing those Czech games.
Yeah.
Little point and click with no talking. Yeah.
And you saved that tree from all those spiders.
I really saved the tree, and I found all the collectibles. I met every single bug that you could meet in the game.
Oh, wow. So you got 999 moons in botanical.
In botanicals.
That's
Yeah.
We're right back to where we were.
But
We're
it's
right
like
back to where
30,
we were.
30 characters. It's not 1,000 moons. It's
There's
like,
no game that we've spoken about more on this podcast than this botanical Czech game.
Botanicula.
Botanicula. So anything else on Mario Odyssey, man?
Not really. I mean, I didn't think that they could make a better one than Mario Galaxy. But here we are, and they did. They made a better one than Mario Galaxy. It's the blending of all of the aspects of the past into something new in the future. It's still a lot like the 3D ones, but there's so many different kinds of puzzles along the way. And it kind of trains you to be watching for these various puzzles. At the boss fights, it's crazy. Like, there's one boss fight that uses the entire level as the boss fight.
Really?
Yeah, it's so good.
Do you still think that Breath of the Wild is the best game from last year, though?
No, like, it's really tough because I think I had more fun playing Super Mario Odyssey than playing Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I think it really is a coin toss between the two, according to most people.
Yeah.
So, like, that's all you can say is, like, which one did you enjoy playing more? But they're probably equally good.
I have
That's
a question. Is there any jazz music in Super Mario Odyssey?
Yeah.
In New Donk City.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's like 3 of the best games last year involved jazz music. So Mario Odyssey, Cuphead, and Persona 5.
Oh, and this weird Czech game that I no,
Oh, is it?
wasn't. No,
No, no. My entire life will be
Have you
this.
guys ever heard of tree jazz? There's some wind chimes on the tree and the wind goes by. And
because I played New Donk City when I was when we went to Fan Expo. I did the quest where you had to find all the musicians, and you only get 10 minutes to play, and I could only find 3 of them. I couldn't find one of the musicians. I was really sad about it. But also, they wrote a song for Super Mario Odyssey with like lyrics and stuff. Like,
oh, yeah.
right? They performed.
The lyrics
it
are
at
inside the case, right?
Oh, maybe I didn't.
The
notice.
lyrics to the song are inside the case. From
Oh,
Mario.
Yeah, and
I
it's
didn't
like a
look at
real
that.
jazzy song.
It's fantastic. It's amazing. Go buy it. Also, the Switch, probably not going to have as good a 2018, but the Switch has all kinds of indie games that are coming out for it now, so everything I've kind of missed in the indie world is coming out on the Switch. It is my favorite console. I am playing it more than I play my PS4. I am really enjoying the Switch. I think I say that every month at this point. I really like the
Well,
Switch.
I've been playing the Switch this month as well, Chris. And let me tell you, I'm not having a similar experience with it.
But you're not playing the best games that exist.
Oh,
for the
This isn't
Switch.
even. This isn't an argument. This is nonsense.
Listen to what game he's
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
First
So-
of all.
I'm trying to get credits on a bunch of games. I'm trying to beat a bunch of games. You know how I like to do? I like to get that game in there, and I like that game to get finished. You know what I'm saying?
No.
It's,
No,
I
because
just
I've never seen you finish a game on the Switch, so.
I did. I finished that one Street Fighter.
Oh.
So anyway, I'm trying to beat this other game, Pokken Tournament DX, and I'm just going to go briefly through the history of fighting games with you all. Hope you have a couple hours. So old school fighting games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, you'd be able to play them. They would take about 15, 20 minutes to work through the roster of characters, and then you get like a little ending, right? Like a 10-second screenshot and some
Oh, yeah.
text.
Like, Tekken is just 10 levels and then, like, 2 boss fights.
Right.
Right?
And that was the classic arcade fighting game
Yeah.
port. And now, with like Mortal Kombat X and Injustice and Tekken 7 even,
Yeah.
they have these story modes, right? These really long story modes. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, where it's like 10 hours of gameplay, but they switch between multiple characters. So you don't have to play the same character every single round.
Yeah,
You're getting a story.
Yeah, you're playing based on what the story is. Yeah.
See, Pokken Tournament DX, they take it to a new level. Pokken Tournament DX, what they do is they say, pick a character. Now you're going to spend 15 hours with this one character because it is 4 leagues that you have to beat the game. And each league has 15 placement matches that you have to do. At the end of the 15 placement matches, you have to do a top 8 tournament, single elimination. And at the end of that, you have a 1 story fight against Mewtwo. Okay?
Okay.
So at
They're
minimum,
just really stretching the content.
yes.
Because is there a difficulty spike in the leagues? Like,
Yes,
does it get, so
every-
it does get harder.
Yeah. So at minimum, if you did everything perfectly, that's 75 matches.
75 matches.
75. Have you ever played a fighting game that required you to beat 75 opponents? There are only like 12 characters in the roster.
It's really
So
annoying
you're just
too.
fighting the same characters again and again and again.
It's annoying too because there is no story to it, right? So you're just fighting, like it's just a fight.
Yeah.
Whereas like I like watching you play Injustice and Injustice 2 because even in the middle of the fight, like there's even a halfway point where they kind of take a little breather or whatever. But I mean, it's all built into this overarching story. But Pokken Tournament, I've seen you just sitting there playing on the Switch and just angry. You just want it
yeah.
to be done. It's not necessarily that challenging, is it? It's just long
And repetitive.
and repetitive.
So I said 75 matches, right? Now, that is if you never lose a match. Let me tell you what happens when you lose a match. If you're against Mewtwo, which is 1 in 19 matches, that's fine. You just get to do it again. If you lose in the tournament, the top 8, you have to restart the tournament from the beginning. So if you lose in the finals of the tournament, you have to start from the top 8 again. Maybe another 3 matches. But if you lose in the placement matches, it is a minimum of 5 additional matches that are added every time you lose because your placements go down.
Why are you playing this game?
Listen to this. In the placement matches, they're separated by 5s. And just say you finish 3 or 4 of the 5 matches and you're like, you know what? I want to go to bed and turn this off. It doesn't save your progress for those 5 matches. So you have to have finished a set of 5
this is
every
nonsense.
single time.
This is
Listen,
nonsense.
well over 100 matches into Pokken Tournament DX, and I have not had a chance to play with another character in the game other than Pikachu Libre. Pikachu Libre is the only character I've been able to play as this entire time.
Can you play online?
Yeah, probably.
This is nonsense. Your answer is yeah, probably.
He's just trying to get the credits, right? Because he wants it to be a finished
I want to finish
game.
a game, and also I don't want to play online unless I've already finished the main game. That's how I play most of the fighting games, right? When we got Tekken, we wanted to finish the game before we played online.
Before getting our butts kicked online.
Or Injustice, like I want to see the story, you know. Pokken Tournament is asking way too much for way too little.
But also it's Pokemon, so maybe the demographic is
And
younger,
you know the thing,
or...
I think the appeal of Pokemon is collecting them all, right? Like you want to collect all the Pokemon,
right?
And this game goes completely against that in that you pick one and stick with it for 15 hours, and you never get to change.
Yeah, this sounds like nonsense. This
This is why I don't think the Switch is very good.
This is ridiculous.
He's played Pokken Tournament and Street Fighter. That's all he's played.
This is ridiculous.
That's why you get the Switch for Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2, Turbo, Ultra, and Pokken Tournament. Pokken Tournament? Are we calling it Pokken Tournament?
Pokemon? I don't know.
But that's enough about fighting games. Today we're talking about RPGs and our main topic.
Hello, everybody. This is VG Collectaholic, co-host of the Masters of Unlocking video game podcast. Now I wanted to take just a minute and let you know about one of my personal favorite gaming and geekery podcasts. That's Josh Leslie's Frantic Thoughts. Frantic Thoughts is a weekly one-man show that features an interesting personal perspective on video games, movies, and random geek culture, 3 of my favorite things. Frantic Thoughts is a funny and refreshing, bite-sized podcast that typically runs about a half an hour, a perfect listen for my midweek morning commute. Check out Frantic Thoughts on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasting fix. You won't regret it.
So today we're talking about RPGs, both tabletop and video game. I feel like I'm going to start with video games because one game I've been playing recently is Battle Chasers Night War. It is a Kickstarter game that came out on the PS4, Xbox One, and then it's coming out on Switch soon. I think it also is out on PC. This game is based on Joe Madureira, his comic book of the same name, Battle Chasers, which was a pretty famous comic book that only had 3 issues and took him years to complete. Eventually there were 3 other issues that came out, but it was like a 6-issue comic book that took like a decade to do, because he kept getting other projects, but people loved it. Like, the fans of Battle Chasers are hardcore fans. So this game got kickstarted, and I've never read the comics. You know, it's a lot for me to get into. I don't have the time.
3 issues. I can't commit that kind of time. I can only read Russian novels. So.
So I picked up this Battle Chasers, and I've been running with it. I haven't played a lot of video game RPGs. I played Persona 5 last year. I played Mario RPG and maybe a couple others. But The things that I really liked about Persona 5 and Mario RPG is that when you are going through the world, and if you fight everything in the world up until the boss, you will be of the appropriate level to fight that boss. See what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
if you were able to beat everything in the palace of Persona 5, you're ready for the boss. In Battle Chasers, what they do is they have dungeons scattered around the map, and once you finish a dungeon, you can reset the dungeon and go back in. And in fact, you have to do that multiple times. You have to grind out the same dungeon just so that you can be of a level appropriate for the next challenge. So you have to play the same dungeon like 2 or 3 times.
That's stretching the content for sure, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't love the grinding. I got to admit, I do not love the grinding.
Okay, when I played Final Fantasy 2/4 with the Cartridge Club, when it was the game of the month, I was playing on the Game Boy or whatever, Game Boy Advance, and I didn't mind the grinding because I just would kind of zone out and do it. I would just wander around and fight stuff, and for me, I would rather grind a bunch. If I'm in the mood, like I'll like do for like an hour or something, just so that the rest of the game doesn't become super frustrating. But I don't like when you have to do that. Like, I don't think I had to do that. I think that you could get through the game and it would just be a little bit more challenging. You'd have to be a little bit more thoughtful about the spells and things that you use and the moves that you make. But this sounds like you have no choice, right?
Yeah,
like
you die to the first random thing that you fight.
So I don't know. I don't think I would like that. But if the game is good enough, right?
It's very stylish, and the character design is very good. The characters are good and interesting. The dialogue is interesting. So it's unfortunate that it does get a little grindy. Another problem with it is that you get other characters than your starting 3 later on, but you have to level them up individually.
Oh.
So if they're not in your party, they're not getting the experience points, and that's another thing I don't like about RPG games.
Yeah, that's a little tough.
Because then it's just like you're going to play the same 3 characters you started with. You're not going to try them because they're underpowered, right? Like, you're not going to bother.
I've never played a game where it's been super beneficial for you to switch the characters that you haven't leveled up, right? To switch to another one and say, oh, in this situation, this other character would... And there probably are games that are like that. I've just never played one. I'd rather just have the one that I've, like, the 3 or 4 that I've been working on that are all the same level, that I don't have to worry a little bit. I mean, when we played Super Mario RPG, you do get like a new character that starts lower than everyone else, but if it's someone that you want to switch to, then they eventually catch up, right?
Yeah.
But that's not like...
But they also level when they're not in your party.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
You know,
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's time to admit to myself, to be honest with you, that what I...
Have you been lying this whole time?
Yeah, that what I always really want is something like Pillars of Eternity. Do you guys know about Pillars of Eternity? It's the isometric role-playing game that harkens back to the days of Neverwinter Nights and Baldur's Gate. They made this one, which was an homage, and it's really good, but I get about halfway through, and I find something else to do, and it doesn't keep my attention. But I think it's time to finally admit that that is what I keep saying I would like, but what I actually like is something like Diablo 3, which is quick. I play it, I level a guy up, I get some better spells, I get some better stuff, and that's what I like.
Yeah, Diablo 3 was on my list as well because the time commitment isn't so huge, right? Like,
Yeah.
And it's a good story, and it's pretty challenging, right? And it can be longer if you want it to be longer, right? I was surprised to find out, like, some of Myles' friends were playing it, and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm still just playing Diablo 3. I'm like, what is there to do when you finish, after you finish the story? But yeah, you just keep trying to get better and better gear, and
it's a Blizzard game, right?
Yeah.
There's always
so
something
there's
to
else
do.
to do.
Yeah, for me, like, I really appreciated still having like those RPG elements where you're, you know, getting better stuff and you're grinding and things are getting a little bit more challenging, but then it ends, right? Like, you're working towards a nice ending to a story, right? And it's a pretty good story. I've not played the DLC. I've heard that it's really good and that it improves upon the game, and it's more random and stuff like that. So
It's also unique, Diablo, in that it's a co-op RPG. There's not a lot of co-op RPGs, and that's a lot of fun. Being able to make a character and level it up with your friends and like work together strategically to take on a dungeon. That's like an experience that can't be beat, you know?
yeah, and I like kind of like the drop-in feature too. Like you don't have to always.
Oh, I didn't
don't
know that.
I don't think
Yeah.
so. Like I know that sometimes if my friend Colette would be playing, she would just jump into my game and we would play together and it didn't matter if we were not the same level or whatever. I feel like it would probably maybe be closer to the lower level person's level. I'm guessing. I don't really know how it works, but
Is there couch co-op for PS4, Xbox?
no, I don't think so. I don't think you could play on the same screen. But maybe, I don't know. Do we even have it for a PlayStation?
No, we don't.
I don't think we do.
I can't buy any games.
Oh, too bad. I could buy it. Chris, you want to play some couch co-op Diablo 3 if it comes if it has it?
Yeah, obviously I do. I enjoy Diablo 3. I enjoy it more than I enjoy the games I say that I really enjoy.
Do you think Diablo 3 would be good on PlayStation 4?
Diablo 3 is good, so I don't know. But yeah, probably.
How about on the Switch?
Yeah, I would love to have it on the Switch. You guys haven't really played through the Morrowinds, the Skyrim, the Bethesda.
I played a little bit of Skyrim.
Yeah.
So I get disoriented really easily, and so I started playing Skyrim, and I really enjoyed it. But then I was like, oh hey, there's a cave over there, and I ran off to this cave, and then I kept dying in it because everything in it was too high level for me, and then couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go, so
Oh,
I stopped.
Well,
That's
But-
why I quit Horizon Zero Dawn.
But I liked it, and I would go back to it if it wasn't so huge of a game. Like, I've been curious about Morrowind because a lot of people talk about it as being their favorite one, right?
yeah, it's my favorite one. Back when I had a ton of time.
I wish that I had the attention span, but I don't know. In this day and age with like cell phones and distractions, I have a hard time. Like, you really can't do just like 1 or 2 hours when you sit down and play, right? Like, you want to get a lot done every time you play just because it's such a long game. Like, I think that was the other thing about Diablo 3 is that the individual segments weren't like crazy long, right? Like, the individual story bits that you would do didn't require a huge amount of time. Like, you could beeline it from the beginning of the chapter to sort of like the end of it or whatever.
But
Something
if you
like,
had a little bit more time, there was stuff to explore.
yeah, if you wanted to, like, you could. So when I played Diablo 3, it was one of those things where it's like a closed map, and like every time you move it, like it reveals a little bit more of your little mini map, and it would drive me nuts if I found the exit or the dungeon before uncovering the whole map. So then I personally would go and run around just to like reveal the map. Like, I wouldn't necessarily explore everything there, but I just needed to uncover the whole map because it would drive me crazy if there was like a little grayed out area in the corner.
You were speaking of phone RPGs and being distracted. I got 2 of pen and paper, so the Knights of Pen and Paper and Galaxy of Pen and Paper.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Knights of Pen and Paper 2, I do not like, I hate. I think it has built itself a cash grab system, and I played about an hour of it till I got to the point where I started dying and it wanted me to pay for gold, and I was like, no, this is nonsense. Can I just pay?
What is this? What are these games?
These 2 games are tongue-in-cheek Dungeons and Dragons games on your phone where you get to control the DM and you get to control the player characters, and it's all like
Oh.
in jokes. And so in the DM part, you like say, oh, they're gonna fight 3 rats and they're gonna get this much XP from it because of the XP bonus if you give them a hard encounter, and then you play the encounter as the characters. It's really simple. It's a good system. Galaxy of Pen and Paper, which is their kind of star,
Sci-fi one?
yeah, their sci-fi one. That one you pay money for at the outset, and then it looks like you never have to pay money for again. That one's really good. Like, you just level guys up. It's pretty cool. Knights of Pen and Paper 2 can die in a fire.
All right, so we'll skip that one. Sounds good. Thanks for the hot tip.
You were talking earlier about you've never played an RPG where it was beneficial to switch the characters. I think one that was really good where you could do that is Child of Light. And if you get
okay.
the opportunity to play Child of Light, it is one of the most interesting takes on turn-based combat I think I've played. It's written like a fairy tale, so everything rhymes. except for one character.
Oh, okay.
But it's a really interesting, cute story, beautiful. Like the art style is really well done.
I'm sure there are, like when I play Dragon Age, you kind of need to have a healer with you if you're not playing one. I kind of get that, but like if you're a rogue then and you meet another rogue,
You do not need that rogue.
yeah, like it's going to be a lot harder to play the game if you take that rogue. So you like meet this person and just like, I don't ever need to play with this guy in my party. So he's always just back at camp. But it is good because if you're not playing a rogue and you meet him, then he's kind of essential to your party. It kind of gives you the flexibility on who you play, but then again, you're stuck with your person, right? I don't know. There must be games where your party makeup is very important and changing it is an important part of the strategy. I've just never played one.
It's so funny that Gary Gygax and a couple people a long time ago came up with the basic party structure of wizard, cleric, fighter, rogue, and it hasn't really changed much since then. Like whenever people are thinking about, I need to build a party, a balanced party, it's always like healer, spellcaster,
Yeah.
rogue, tank.
Yeah.
Like and even now in Overwatch,
Yeah,
you
that's
can
true.
see that they have the categories separated. I don't know how they came up with it originally, but it's weird that it's become such an archetype now in so many games, video games as
Yeah.
well as tabletop. That being said, the most dispensable character is the rogue. You don't really need a rogue. A second cleric might be better than a rogue. I am playing a rogue in our Flock Talk RPG.
Yeah, and you're almost always like cleric or paladin or something usually, right?
I just wanted to try something
Or sometimes,
different.
do you sometimes play like a magic user?
I had a really long run with a warlock
Oh, okay.
in 3.5, and then I like cleric a lot because I always feel useful if I'm cleric.
Yeah. The reason why we're talking about RPGs is because of Flock Talk RPG. We thought we should like maybe talk a little bit about it, just a little bit about the podcast because we're playing it a little bit differently than people are expecting. Like some of the first questions were like, I don't hear you guys rolling dice. I thought that it was about like rolling dice and figuring out like doing the math or
Right.
whatever. We're not really playing it that way. Like Chris is doing all of the dice rolling for us just so that we're not bogged down with the mechanics of the game itself.
Right, but aren't we really playing the way maybe the three of us would like all of these games to be? Aren't we fundamentally playing it the way we would most like a role-playing game to go?
100% playing with you. Role playing is the reason to play, right? Because you're as a DM very good and like you can do all your characters, but also like people have an experience playing with you as a player and it's just as fun. Like you as a player, the way that you play takes away from the mechanics of it, right? And you're interested in telling the story, and that's why we wanted to do this particular version of D&D, like play it our way because it's just for us kind of the storytelling aspect.
Right.
I actually like Myles got me into D&D because I liked rolling dice and like doing the math and stuff like that. Like that's actually how I got started into playing D&D. Like he would just have dice around and I would just roll it for fun, and he's like, you should probably just play D&D if you like rolling dice so much. Flock Talk RPG is getting me more into the role playing side. Like this is newer for me, right? Like I actually enjoyed the dice rolling and stuff like that. But for the show, it was important for it to be more
show.
entertaining than
Right.
it is here's how you play D&D, because it is just a short campaign. It's only going to be probably 4 episodes or
Yeah,
so.
3 more.
These are just one-off short adventures. We wanted to be able to tell a fun, co-op story, right?
And so there actually is a lot more dice rolling than you hear in the episodes, but a lot of that stuff is cut out. A lot of the mechanics, a lot of talking about what's in the books, like, oh, can I do this, looking things up, all of that stuff is cut out of the show. So if you're worried about not being able to understand what's going on because you don't have a history playing Dungeons and Dragons, you could still listen to the episode as just kind of like an improv show, because a lot of the mechanics and the actual game of Dungeons and Dragons has been removed from the episodes.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of D&D podcasts that you can listen to where you do hear and learn all about the actual mechanics and the gameplay itself, but that's not what we were trying to do with this. And it's not just going to be D&D that we play. I think
Yeah.
Gamma World is something that we'd like to try because the mechanics are very different. It involves like your character kind of evolves because it's post-apocalyptic and it's like kind of like in a nuclear landscape. There's a lot of weird evolutions that happen, and the mechanics of them are interesting. But again, because it's for the show, we probably won't really showcase any of the mechanics, but we will probably talk about it at times. That's kind of what we want to do, a show. It's not just D&D, it's other RPGs where they all kind of share the same thing in common, right? Which is the storytelling aspect. That's why we started Flock Talk RPG.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of systems that I would like to explore. There's a variety of systems. It's not just, say, fantasy settings or even sci-fi settings. I would like at some point to do the wrestling setting. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what everyone wants to do.
I can't wait until you guys play my Waterworld RPG that I made myself.
Oh.
That's going to be next. It'll be a 15-part series where all of you play Kevin Costner.
Are we on an atoll or are we on the Exxon Valdez?
You're just adrift.
You just
It's a really boring RPG. Most of us just die of starvation.
I'm playing a level 1 raisin finger. That's what they call them.
I'll be a barnacle. I'm just going to be a barnacle stuck to the side of the ship. It'll be pretty exciting stuff. You know what? Will Wheaton's tabletop web series, one time they played a Dragon Age RPG,
with
tabletop
Chris Hardwick,
RPG.
right?
It had Chris Hardwick, and it had the guy from Big Bang Theory who runs the comic book shop.
Oh, yeah.
I can never remember his name, but I've never been able to find that game anywhere. But it had pretty interesting mechanics in that, and again, like it's set in the Dragon Age world, so that would be the story that you're telling, and it'll be different for every game. That's what's kind of fun about it. I don't know what other ones.
I mean,
There's
I
lots.
played a lot of D&D like when I was younger and still now on this podcast. I remember when we were playing 3.5, it was the first campaign that I ever ran. I'm just going to go into telling D&D stories now if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I remember being a DM and I had a party of 5 players. I knew in this adventure that I wanted to make it look like a princess was captured, but what was happening was something else. And it looked like the princess was at the top of a light tower or a lighthouse. They had to fight a bunch of things going up this lighthouse, the party. And the whole time there's this one guy in the group and he's like, when I see that princess, it's going to be me that rescues her. Okay, guys, like it's going to be me. I want to rescue her. And everyone's like, yeah, all right, dude, whatever. And they kept going up. And the whole time I know what's actually happening. And I couldn't contain myself. Like this is the perfect opportunity. And they get to the top of the lighthouse and they see her and she's combing her hair in a mirror and he's like, hi princess, it's me, I'm here to rescue you. And she turns around and then I was able to just be behind, you know, that barrier when you're playing D&D, the DM screen.
The DM screen.
And I was able to just and become a witch, reveal the plan that it was all to lure them in so that I could capture the party. And that guy really, he turned red at that moment. And when he realized that there was no princess and that he was a fool.
Pretty good switcheroo, Myles.
Well, thank you very much.
The tabletop versions of these games let you do so much more and play around with expectations in such like interesting ways. Like during that game that we played, the Curse of Strahd, we're going through Curse of Strahd right now, and I changed it a bit so that these moon pies had a little something else in them.
So there's a vendor walking around selling pies, right?
And the vendor selling pies, and then they buy some pies, they eat some pies, and it turns out something really nasty's in the pies later on. And it's tied into where they were, and they get to see how the pies are made and what's in them. And just the revulsion of one of our friends at what he had done and what he had eaten. You wouldn't get that in an RPG. You wouldn't get that kind of visceral feeling of, I mean a video game RPG, but you wouldn't get that kind of close connection. You don't get like a tailored experience in the way you do with like a tabletop RPG. Or you can with a tabletop RPG. And you have to be pretty flexible in how you're telling the story and what kind of story you're letting your players play. But if you do it and it clicks, then you get really cool moments that stay with you for a long time. and it's always never about the mechanics of the thing.
That's essentially what we're trying to show in the other podcast.
I remember one of the things that I loved the most was when you wrote one of your first D&D adventures, Kathryn, and you came up with this troll character called Brannigan, and he lived under a bridge. And when you say troll to D&D players, they have a very specific picture from the
Right.
monster manual in their mind. But the troll that Kathryn was playing was like, "Hi, I'm Brannigan. How you guys doing?"
He was a bridge troll in training, so he was very little, and then it just evolved that the description of him was that he was essentially a troll doll. You know,
he had like fuzzy
the
hair.
fuzzy hair,
Yeah.
fuzzy purple
Yeah.
hair,
And a gem in
and
his
a little
belly button.
gem in his belly button. I mean, he wasn't necessarily. He was just going to be a young troll. But then I'm not great with like voices and stuff, so he just sounded like kind of cutesy. I didn't mean for it to happen that way. And then they just immediately started picturing a troll doll, so that's just what happened. I'm like, all right, let's
Just
go with
rolled
it.
with it. Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go with it. I don't write a ton of adventures. Like, I find that part a little bit harrowing. So thank you guys for running most of the games that we play.
But you bring up a good point with the just run with it. That's something that a video game can never do, right? They can't assess the player's reaction and then change things on the fly so that they are in line with the player's expectations or what the players hope to see, you know? And I think that's one of those things that makes tabletop RPGs and that kind of loose activity gameplay a more desirable option if that's the sort of thing you're into.
Yeah, when it's clicking, it's clicking in a way kind of nothing else clicks, which is why people really end up loving it.
The problem is there's no single player.
That's
my problem.
The
That's
problem.
that's not true. Chris was playing that single player one with the book.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same. Maybe now that there's so many video game RPGs that people are playing, that if they start realizing that they're all born from tabletop RPGs, that they might be more open to trying an actual tabletop RPG, because the experience is just very different. And if you've ever like played Dragon Age or The Witcher or something like that and just wished you could have said something else or done something else or like played a joke on someone, right? Anytime that you think that, you should be trying it in an RPG, like a tabletop game, because you couldn't do that. And that's essentially what it is. If you like video game RPGs, you should maybe try a tabletop one.
This is also my advice for people starting out or who just want to get into it with, say, a group of friends. Do not worry about the rules. The rules are there to make sure you have a good time, and if the rules are getting in the way of your good time, discard some of them. You know, you don't need to spend 5 minutes looking up what a grapple check is. If you get to that point, move on, figure it out. Just roll a dice and decide what that means. You know, don't let the rules
Yeah.
get in the way of your good time. The Dungeons and Dragons police is not going to burst through the door and be like, you did not play that grapple check correctly, or that spell was incorrect. Who cares? It's all in the service of making sure you have a good time. So don't worry so much about the rules. Do what you want. Let the dice decide it and try to have a good time with it.
That's very good advice, Chris.
There you go. There you go. I'm full of it.
You sure are. That's how we feel about RPGs. Let us know in the forum what you think. But now we got some odds and ends.
Odds and ends.
This might come as a surprise to both of you, but I'm not buying video games anymore.
You're done.
Ever again.
Done. I'm done until June.
Okay, you've heard this first. Everyone's heard it. Oh, until June. Okay.
Yeah, that's my birthday. I gotta get games on my birthday. So
Oh, so it's only 5 months. I thought it was going to be 6 months.
No.
Okay.
I got this idea from Jake on Polykill. He last year did not buy any games until June, and I think that that's probably a safe bet. I have so much on my backlog, it's not even funny. So I just want to keep crushing these games, and I'm off to a great start because in January already I have finished 14 games. I beat Super Lucky's Tale, Injustice 2, A Girl and Her Robot, Day of the Tentacle Remastered, Devil's Third, Rise of the Tomb Raider, WWF Raw,
Nice.
WWF Royal Rumble,
Nice.
Vegas Stakes, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Clay Fighter, Disney's Aladdin, Final Fight 3, and The Great Waldo Search.
Can we talk about something for a moment? How How close to the show would you say that Thomas the Tank Engine skewed?
It was cool because they had all of your favorite characters from the show, even Ducky, Chris.
They had
even
Ducky?
Yeah, Ducky was there. My favorite part was actually the unsanctioned train drag races that you get to do in the game by just jamming the A button.
Do you also get to play as Ringo Starr during the interludes?
Is he in that? Isn't
Yeah, he was in Shining Time Station.
that's Shining Time Station? Is that where Thomas
Is
the
that
Tank
Thomas the Tank Engine?
Is that where he came from?
I mean,
Our story's falling apart here. I have no idea what happened in the show.
Didn't George Carlin play one?
First it was Ringo, then it was George Carlin.
And this is a completely different show. Huh.
That had
None of us have kids. We don't know.
that had
But I did
Thomas the
play
Tank Engine in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then Thomas the Tank Engine, it's a spin-off. It became its own show.
I think Thomas the Tank Engine was its own show before, then Shining Time Station happened, then Thomas the Tank Engine was still its own show after. It's kind of like Merry Melodies. The cartoons exist before the show packages them up, and then they're still a show after.
People at home, this may not be true.
Unfortunately, I know a lot of you come here for your Thomas the Tank Engine information, but we're not up to snuff.
This month's hot topic, Thomas the Tank Engine.
I like, though, Chris, that you were not at all fazed by the fact that Myles played Where's Waldo and Thomas the Tank Engine. You just
And
accepted
counted
it.
them as beaten games.
You just accepted, oh, yes, he played these games. Okay, yes, as you do when you're an adult.
At this point, there's no point. I know who the man is. I know what he likes. When you stand in front of the ocean, you can't tell it to stop being wet.
Yep, that's me, an ocean.
Well, I actually think Myles should maybe explain why he's played these games.
It's because of the Cartridge Club forums and the brand new challenge, hashtag CCCCC. And it is started by a couple people, mainly Caleb J. Ross, and then Dean from Round 2 Gaming just went nuts and started beating all these Super Nintendo games. Let me explain real quick what it is. It is the Cartridge Club Console Completion Challenge. The idea is that
As a
club, we're going to finish every single Super Nintendo game in a year.
North American release Super Nintendo game in 1 year. And it's kind of done like a little competition, so Caleb has it all set up in this like fancy way where if you beat a game that hasn't been beaten, you just kind of log in, put in the game, and then there's like a point system. All games get you 1 point, and then depending on the length of the game, according to howlongtobeat.com, you get bonus points for however long like the average playtime is.
And if
for
you're
that
the
game.
first person to finish the game, you get an extra point.
So you can repeat games? I can play Where's Waldo and also get a point?
Yeah, but
Huh.
I got 2 points for it.
Oh, interesting.
Even if you're not part of the Cartridge Club, you should come on down to the cartridgeclub.org, sign up to the forum, and play along with us, because this has been really fun so far.
It's a big library. It's like almost 800 games, is it? Like 700 and something games? That's a lot of games to have to play. I don't know. I think with Dean on our side, it's actually feels like it might be doable. So that's actually why we have the RetroPie hooked up. I've had it for so long, haven't done anything with it. And then finally I was like, if we're going to beat this challenge or at least contribute, that's the way that we will play our Super Nintendo games. We have the entire library there. So that's why Myles has been like knocking off all these like little kitty easy ones. I feel like it's a little bit cheap. Well, there's a lot of games. I'm just like, someone's got to play Thomas the Tank Engine, right? So Myles took one for the team.
Kathryn, do you have any odds and ends?
I didn't really think of anything except for it's not game related. I'm reading. This is not going to be very interesting, so I'll say it quickly. I'm reading a new translation of Anna Karenina, which is like one of my favorite books.
Oh.
It's a new translation by a husband and wife team. I can't remember which is which, but like one of them is really good with dialogue, translating dialogue, and the other one is really good with description. So together, it's this like really beautiful translation. My sister recommended it to me. It's her copy, and she had never read the book before, but she was like, those translators are really good. I got into reading it because I watched randomly this Australian miniseries called The Beautiful Lie from 2015, and it's just like a 6-part mini series, and it's actually an adaptation of Anna Karenina. It took me a while to realize, even though like everyone is named exactly the same, like Kitty and Dolly and Anna, and like didn't put two and two together until like the third episode. I was like, oh, everything that happens in the book is happening in this like modern setting in Australia. It's quite good, the miniseries.
You better watch out, because this could slowly become just a reading podcast. We could just slowly morph this into...
I would not be on the podcast.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that. Myles will not contribute. So if you and I read a book every now and then and talk about it, I think it's okay.
You both can talk about books, and I can talk about Pokken Tournament DX and
Still
Thomas the
trying to beat.
Tank Engine. I've never read Anna Karenina. How about you, Chris?
I haven't read Anna Karenina, but I have read War and Peace. So there you go. You have to complete the Flock Talk Tolstoy Challenge. Pick a Tolstoy book and read it all the way through, and then tell us which one you've read. That's the Tolstoy Challenge from Flock of Nerds.
Chris, you got any odds and ends for us?
I do! I split a copy with two other people of a board game that just came out. The second print run of it came out, and they finally released it. It's called Gloomhaven. It costs, I think, something like $150.
Whoa.
Yeah, right? So
What?
I go pick it up, and the guy from underneath the counter pulls up this massive box. I want to say 2 feet by a foot
No.
in
That's
length
giant.
and width, and then depth is also a foot. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking
That's
about,
a giant box.
I think, 4 square feet. Let's not exaggerate. Maybe 3.5, 4 square feet. But anyway, he goes, here it is, all 20 pounds of it, and I pick it up, and it's 20 pounds. And now I have to walk it home, and it's hurting me. I don't get my grip strength back for 2 hours. And I am not someone who just sits on the couch. I work out, and it still killed my hands. And then finally, we open it up. It is a
Just
cooperative...
bricks.
Just
Bricks inside.
Just packing peanuts. So, it is a cooperative role-playing game. Speaking of role-playing games... cooperative role-playing game. It has boxes that you open up inside. It has all the tiles for every single scenario. There are something like 100 or so scenarios in this box, and it supposedly has about 100 plus hours of content in it. You will play a character, you will level the character up, and the character has an end. You already know what the end of the character will be, and once you get that end, you retire the character, throw it out, pick up a new character that nobody knows what it is, and start playing with that new one. And it is so good. The combat system is no dice. It's all card play. It's just a really good system.
Interesting.
I am playing as a rat woman who uses her mind to control the monsters and also summon more rats. That's basically where I'm at. I'm summoning more rats. I'm controlling the monsters. That's what I'm doing.
Are the characters pre-rolled, or did you choose?
The character has its own stats that comes with it, but the deck that you use to do everything in the game can be modified. So if you level up, you get access to the level 2 cards, and you can change your 10 card deck to have more level 2 stuff in it, or you can just stick with the level 1 stuff. It's an interesting way of mixing up the character.
Is the setting modern or like...
Fantasy. It's a fantasy setting. It's a story.
It's one continuous 100 scenarios in the same story.
Yeah, you get a map, and everywhere you go, you get to put the sticker on the map of all the places you've been. You get to go to town. Town has a bunch of different things that can happen. You buy stuff, you level up.
That sounds really cool.
It's been good so far. We managed to get 2 scenarios in. It was really good. I'm looking forward to playing more of it. That is we're not buying any more board games for the foreseeable future until we all get tired of Gloomhaven. So we'll see how long that lasts.
So 98 more scenarios until you get credits. And that is credits for us on Flock Talk episode 15. Thank you all so much for listening. For Chris and Kathryn, I'm Myles. Take care, everybody.